Have you heard about the most popular radio station in the world? Do you know what the name might be? It's not BBC, it's not Voice, it's not any radio station. It's actually called WIIFM. And what does that actually stand for? That stands for What's in It For Me. And the video you're going to watch right now is really all about that. What's in it for you joining this program? What's in it for you being part of this negotiation online program? Now, one thing I'm going to focus on in this short video is really the importance of negotiation. And one thing that is really interesting is that World Economic Forum have conducted a study together with IBM, where they'll be looking at the most important work skills by 2020. And what is really interesting is that negotiation has been and will continue to be among the top 5 working skills requirement in order to be successful. As you can see on the screen up here, what we have is complex problem solving. That is a number 1. Coordinating with other people, working together with people is a number 2. People management is a number 3. Critical thinking is a number 4. And negotiation pops up as a number 5. This is actually a study that has been done in more than 500 international global corporations with more than 13 million people involved. So it's actually interesting just to see how important negotiation as a skill and as a work skill is considered today and is believed to be in the future as well. Now, a very traditional negotiation is basically as you see it up here. I'm in the middle of the 2 trenches right now, and what you see is one side negotiating with another side. And they're pointing their rifle towards each other. That means they're not working together, they're really trying to fight each other. So that's the zero-sum game. One is winning at the expense of the other. What I'm really curious about is how come we haven't actually learned anything? How come we're negotiating the same way today as we actually been doing for hundreds and even thousands of years? Why haven't we changed anything? Why is it we're still negotiating the same way where one side is losing at the expense of the other? In all fairness, I do see improvement. I do see several individuals and several companies around the globe actually improving this thinking and actually approaching negotiation in a different way. But there's still so many individuals and companies out there who have this very traditional thinking that I am going to win at the expense of you, or they are going to win at the expense of us. And what is just sad and scary is that we can really do it so much better. We can do it in a way where you win, but the counterpart is not losing, and I can actually win, and you're not losing. Now, how are we supposed to do that? And what is the problems why we're not actually achieving that? Well, one of the problems is that we think we know how to negotiate. I step into so many corporations globally where I can see when I'm asking them, what is your official strategy? What is your official approach into negotiation? That many of them are like, well, we haven't actually done any formal training. We haven't actually read any books on the topics. We're just doing as we always did. I'm just looking at my colleagues and my executive, at my management, and I'm basically just copying the behavior that we did last year and 10 years ago and 15 years ago. And that is really not improvement. At the same time, I sometimes meet people that come to me and say, I don't really think you can teach me anything because I have 26 years of experience within the field of negotiating. And sometimes, not always obviously, sometimes I find that they haven't actually got 26 years of experience. What they got is 1 year of experience that they just copied 26 times. So that means they only got 1 year of experience because they haven't really developed. One of the all-time bestsellers books within the world of negotiation is the famous book, Getting to Yes. You might have heard of it, you might even have read it. And the interesting thing is this book came out in 1983. And in 1983, it was an outstanding book. It was seriously good, and it was one of the first books that was seriously covering the topic of negotiation. The problem is, it's still a bestseller today. And why is that a problem? That is a problem because what worked in the 80s is not working now. The way we conducted negotiation in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, even the 90s, are not working today either. We have possibilities and options of doing things so much better in a different way, but obviously we need to park some of the things we think we know and adapt some new knowledge in this aspect. Now, I'm going very briefly to talk about 4 topics in this short video, and one of them is actually the importance of a strategy in a negotiation. And that means if you don't have a strategy, you're going to be less successful. Another crucial important area is the concept of trust currency. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Then it's also really important to know the rules of the game. That basically means how we're going to negotiate. And the fourth area I'm going to talk about is the concept of necroeconomics. Now, when we're talking about choosing a strategy, we basically have three different choices. We have a zero-sum approach, we have a partnership approach, or we have a SMARTnership approach. And very briefly, zero-sum approach, as I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, is I win at the expense of you, or you win at the expense of me. That is really not the right way forward. We can do that so much better by focusing on partnership or SMARTnership. So that basically means that we could honestly be successful in zero-sum. I know lots of companies out there that are successful in conducting zero-sum. The problem is, as I just said, they are actually successful at the expense of others. The alternative is partnership, and partnership is one of the most misunderstood words in the world because so many people believe that they are in a partnership, but they are truly in a zero-sum, but they have just done a zero-sum for a very long time, and they consider that for a partnership. That's not a true, real relationship. And the alternative to a zero-sum and a partnership is a SMARTnership. And what is the difference in a SMARTnership versus partnership, and especially zero-sum? Well, in a SMARTnership, we're utilizing the value, mathematical difference between the two parties. We're looking at the asymmetric difference between one side and the other side. We have agreed rules of the game, and we are very much focused on necroeconomics. The next item that is really important is trust currency. And you can see that's two words that I have matched together because it's really the marriage between trust and currency financial success. And what I know for a fact is that if we have a high level of trust, our transactional cost will go down and our profit will go up. And the problem today is that we have registered a lower level of trust than ever before. So that means organizations and individuals are trusting each other way less than they did, for instance, 20 years ago. The problem we focus on that is like the keystone in a Roman building. As you can see on the video right here, if we remove the keystone, the building will collapse. And the same thing will happen in a negotiation. If we're not utilizing and creating trust, we are really not creating the real, and we're really not developing the true potential, and we're not gaining the full effects of this relationship. And the other part I want to mention is the rules of the game. The rules of the game is really we need to negotiate on how to negotiate. Way too often I see two or more parties getting into a conference room, starting negotiation without actually knowing what they're going to do. You know what? United Nations in New York has never ever declared an international standard on how to negotiate. That means that you may perceive negotiation like playing chess, and I may perceive negotiation like playing tennis. So I'm showing up in this conference room with a racket ready to play tennis, and you're sitting there with a chessboard ready to play chess. So that means this is going to be awkward, isn't it? We have to negotiate on how to negotiate before we start negotiating, and that is rules of the game. And the last items I want to mention for you guys is the concept of necroeconomics. And that basically means that we have a huge unusual potential that is not discovered, not capitalized, and not utilized. We've done a huge study among 35,000 negotiators worldwide, and what we discovered is that if we take an average negotiation like you can see on the screen right here, we can see that, let's just say for the sake of argument, that this has a total value of 100 million US dollars. What we can see in average is that the buying side, the purchaser, is only getting 19% of all those values. So that will be 19 million. What we also learned is that the selling side is actually getting 39% of the value. So in this case, that will be 39 million. And here comes the interesting part, and that is the unutilized, non-capitalized value is all the way up to 42%. That means we might have a buyer and a seller that reads an agreement, are by the way very happy with that agreement, sign the contract, leave the conference room, and actually leaving that conference room with 42 million still on the table. They didn't identify that, they didn't capitalize that, and they didn't utilize that. So one of the key things on this program is actually the very unique concept of necroeconomics. If we look at it in this aspect, like the model is showing right here, then we have the traditional room of negotiation. And the traditional room of negotiation is the difference between what the buyer can pay, that is either controlled by a budget, or what we call the next best alternative, that could be a competitor, compared to what the sales rep are able to go down to. So that means the sales rep's limit. And the traditional room for negotiation, as you can see in this case, will be 30,000. That's the typical room for negotiation in a zero-sum game. But the real room for negotiation is obviously the combination of the traditional room for negotiation plus the potential of necroeconomics. So you can see what happens. If we are able to utilize and capitalize necroeconomics, three things will happen. One thing is that the room for negotiation up here will actually be increased. We will actually see that both parties can win more, but not at the expense of the counterpart, and the negotiation will actually become easier. Back to my trenches. What we really want to do in a negotiation is create a relationship where we're not pointing the rifle towards each other. We want to create a relationship where we're really working outwards. That means that we're trying to create value from the outside that will benefit both parties within the trenches. So if you remember the original cartoon I showed you, you had the two parties that might be working together in a round trench, but they're still pointing the rifle towards each other. In a SMARTnership, they are working together in a truly fashion where they're looking for values that could utilize 2 + 2 = 7. Now, this program here is the only program you will get in the world that's focused on necroeconomics, that is focused on SMARTnership, and is focused on trust and behavioral economics all in the same package. So that means this is the only program where you actually get the tools and the toolbox to utilize necroeconomics and get the additional strategy above zero-sum and above partnership called SMARTnership. Everything we're going to talk about on this program is based on a number of books. A lot of them is my books. As you might recall from my introduction, I've published 24 books in 38 countries in 17 different languages. So a lot of the knowledge is from my books, but obviously there's a lot of knowledge from a lot of other experts out there that have been doing outstanding research and outstanding work within the field of negotiation. This is just a quick overview of what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on SMARTnership as a strategy, obviously. And SMARTnership is just a fancy word that basically gives us an improved business result through added value. We're going to focus on efficient negotiation skills. We're going to look at ethics, moral, and trust in negotiation. We're going to focus on cross-cultural issues. That means how is it negotiating with other cultures, obviously. We are basically training you to become the head of the negotiation team, so we need to be an efficient leader and be able to coach our team as well. We're going to focus on emotional intelligence, that means the emotional side of negotiating, and then we need to be efficient in communication. Please remember, if communication doesn't work, negotiation is not going to work either. Another thing we're going to focus on is what I call the 15-85% rule. And that is a study I did 7 years ago, and we did it together with Carnegie Institute of Technology. And what we actually concluded is that only 15% of the reason you are successful in life is based on what we call the technical knowledge. And about 85% is based on what we call the insight into human engineering. So the technical knowledge is basically your knowledge, experience, and the number of years you've been doing whatever you're doing. And the human engineering is your skills in social interaction. So that means your social intelligence. So what I'm basically saying is that your ability to be likable and trusted by other people is more important than what you actually know. And what is interesting is that communication, negotiation, trust currency is a huge part of the 85% rule. Another thing we're going to look at is behavioral economics, and that's basically the marriage and the merger between orthodox traditional economics and psychology. And that basically means how good, or rather how bad we are at making rational decisions, and how we really make decisions, not how we're supposed to make decisions, but how we're really making decisions. And sometimes we're good at it, and sometimes as human beings, we're definitely not good at it. The concept we're going to work on for these weeks is actually an award-winning concept. The Organization of Public Procurement Officers in Denmark have awarded one of my clients the prize of Best Tender Negotiation in 2017, since they were using and utilizing the concept of SMARTnership and necroeconomics. And what the organization said awarding this prize was that Blue Culling, that's the name of the client, has been thinking outside the box and approached tender negotiation in a completely new way. They have included necroeconomics and SMARTnership, and that is optimizing the agreement for both parties and created a true win-win deal. And it's clever, it's smart, it's collaboration, it's the right way in a negotiation process. Now, what are you going to get from this program? Well, you're going to get several stuff. And one of the key things is obviously you're getting experience of more than 25 years studying and research within this field. You're going to get hands-on. That means you're actually going to be part of negotiation yourself. I usually use the phrase that you can't learn to swim by reading a book. So that means you're going to be hands-on and negotiate on your own. There'll be a bunch of books and papers that are optional reading or required reading. We will do a negotiation simulation, as I mentioned. That means that you'll be negotiating online and by email with some of your colleagues. There will be a bunch of videos that are really useful. It's a shortcut instead of reading something and will give you some additional explanation. There'll be office hours where you can get in contact with me and ask for advice or any kind of additional information you would like. And then, of course, it's a complete toolbox on how to negotiate. What can I do when I'm done with this program? Well, a very important thing is you can actually head a negotiation team. As I just mentioned, we're basically training you to be head of the negotiation team. So that's a very important thing that you're getting from this program. Another thing you're getting is that you can identify the 5 different negotiation styles. That's very important when you are negotiating in real life, both that you can identify the counterpart, but certainly also that you know your own style. You're able to create negoeconomics with the potential of utilizing up to 42% more value in your negotiation. You can establish strategies on behalf of your organization. You will gain confidence and be very certain on how to get into negotiation, regardless what kind of negotiation it might be. You will be able to eliminate or reduce stress, and stress is a key issue for some negotiators. You will be able to prepare professionally, and you would definitely become way more successful by listening and utilizing these things that we are focusing on the program. And your goals, well, you might obviously have your own goals that could be different, but one of the goals could be, how can I actually become a better negotiator? Another goal could be, I need to know my own flaws. Why am I actually doing something not perfectly? Eliminate stress is a typical goal I get from a lot of clients. Get a checklist and you'll get that. It's a typical goal I receive from a lot of people as well. Be trained by the best and access 24/7. That means obviously you can go online 24/7 and recapture something you did already and study something new, so you have access 24/7 around the world. Handling all types of negotiators is a typical tool and goal as well, and get a clear structure on how to negotiate. Please remember this little quote I got up here, and that is, all prosperity is no longer prosperity as long as it's pinned to other people's pain. And that is really one of the key things. My mission is actually to tell you and the world that we can do so much better in collaboration, in relations, in meeting, and negotiations. So just to wrap up, I am so happy that you are going to decide to join this program, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. All the best. Thank you.